Just as we have relationships in our family and personal lives, so do we have relationship between tables in an Access database. Let's do an example. The relationships we're going to talk about is one to many. For example, one teacher can have many students in his or her classroom. One course can have many students in that course. And one team can have many players on that team. The relationship we're talking about is a one-to-many relationship. So why have so many tables? Tables in a database are related so that data need not be repeated. For instance, if a company has one address but several contacts, then the address details will be held in one table and the contact details in another table. This is known as a one-to-many relationship. One record in the first table, Table A, is related to many records in the second table, Table B. Tables are related using key fields in each table. In Table A, the key field will probably be the primary key. The matching field in Table B will have the same field name and is known as the foreign key. Let's talk a little bit more about primary keys and foreign keys. Primary key. Primary keys are the one unique field in each table. The primary key field key can never be repeated. Examples of fields that are unique could be your student ID number, your passport number, driver's license, and social insurance card. Foreign key. The foreign key is the matching primary key field in the second table. It is used to link the first table, Table 1, to the second table, Table 2. It acts as a cross-reference between tables. Referential integrity. In relationships, data is linked between two or more tables. This is achieved by having a foreign key in the associated table reference a primary key in the primary or parent table. Because of this, we need to ensure that data on both sides of the relationship remain intact. So, referential integrity requires that whenever a foreign key value is used, it must reference a valid existing primary key in the parent table. Let's do an example of referential integrity. For example, if we delete a record, let's say record number 15 in the primary table, we need to be sure that there's no foreign key in any related table with a value of 15. We should only be able to delete a primary key if there are no associated records. Otherwise, we would end up with an orphan record. Let's see an example of it. In this example, I have two tables, a primary table and a related table. In my primary table, I have my company and company information. In my second table, I have product and product information. Here, the related tables contain a foreign key value that doesn't exist in the primary key field of the primary table, i.e. the company ID field. This has resulted in an orphan record. Let's look a little bit closer. In our first primary table or company table, our primary key is company ID. And in our second table, our product table, the primary key in our first table is a foreign key in our secondary table. Now, if you notice here, in table 1, I have company ID 1, Apple. And in my related table, I have my foreign key, company ID, and the related product name. In my primary table, again, I have company ID number 2, Samsung. But if you notice here, in my secondary table, my second table, I do not have a number 2 here. Instead, I have a number 15, company ID. And that 15 company ID is not in my primary table. Thus results an orphaned record. this record has no relationship with the primary table. Why? Because the company ID field, example here 15, does not exist in my company ID table. So referential integrity will prevent users from three things. Number one, adding records to a related table if there is no associated record in the primary table. Number two, changing values in the primary table that result in orphan records in the related table. And number three, deleting records from a primary table if there are no matching records, there are no matching related records. Let's do an example. In this example, I'm going to open up my patient information table, and I'm going to show you how to create a one-to-many relationship. It's very easy. Now, over here, I have three tables: doctors, fees, and patients. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to relate these three tables together. To relate these three tables, I go to Database Tools, and I click on Relationships. When I click on Relationships, this window pops up, the relationship window. And right now, it's currently empty. So what I need to do is I need to add tables to this window. So I come up here to my Add Tables button, I click it, and my Show Table dialog box appears. And what I want to do now is I want to display these three tables. Now there's two ways of doing this. I can double click on the table and it will display, or I can click on the table and click on Add. Both ways work. And let me add the third table. Next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I can see all my data. So I'm just moving this over here a little bit, move this over. And if you notice here, I have a scroll bar, so I just want to make this a little bit bigger so I can see all my information. Once I can see all my information, I just want to identify my primary keys in each table, and that's easy to do. If you notice here, my doctor's table, I have a little key next to doctor number, and that's telling me, hey, this field, doctor number, is my primary key in the doctor's table. Same as in my patient table, patient ID has a little primary or a little key next to it, and that's my primary key, patient ID. And of course here for my fees table, the ward field is my primary key. What I want to do now is I want to establish, is there a relationship between the doctor's table and the patient ID table? Well, in the doctor's table, I have a primary key called doctor number. Now, let's see if I have a foreign key in my patient table, also named doctor number. And if I scroll down here, yes, I do. The very last one, doctor number. So what I want to do is I can relate the doctor's table to the patient's table. And the way I do that is I click on my primary key in the doctor's table, click, hold down my button, okay, hold down my mouse button, and drag doctor number from primary key in the doctor's table to the patient doctor number in my patient's table. Make sure you're right on it and let go. If you have done it correctly, you'll come up with this dialog box. It'll say Edit Relationships, and the first table should be your primary key table, your first table. It should say doctors, which it does, and it will say your primary key, doctors numbers, correct. And in this right column, it should say your secondary table, in this example, patients, and if you did it correctly, doctor number. Next thing I want to do is I want to enforce referential integrity. That means that the doctor number has to be in the doctor's table. It cannot be in the patient table and not in the doctor's table. My relationship will be one-to-many, and just click on Create. And that's how easy it is. And if you notice here on the relationship, it'll look very closely. It'll say 1 to the many symbol, the infinity or many symbol here in Microsoft Access. And I've created one doctor can have many patients. Next, we want to see if there's a relationship between the fees table and our patients table. Now, in our fees table, our primary key is ward. Let's see if we have a foreign key in the patients table, also called ward. And if I scroll down here, yes, we do. We have a ward field, or ward field. So what I want to do is I want to create a relationship between my fees table and my patient table. So again, I bring my mouse right on ward, the primary key in the fees table, click, hold your mouse button down, and drag it right to ward in my patients table. Make sure you're right on it and let go. If you have done it correctly, you will get this dialog box that comes up, and it should say your primary table is fees, correct, and ward, and my secondary table is patients, and again, the correct field is ward. I want to make sure I click on enforce referential integrity, check one-to-many relationships, and create. And I've created another relationship. So in one ward, I can have many patients. For example, let's say in the cardiac ward, I could have many patients in the cardiac ward. Or let's say in the neurology ward, okay? In that neurology ward, again, I could have many patients. And that's how easy it is. Now, make sure you save your relationships and you can close. And that's how easy it is to create relationships.